The Black family has one of the longest legacies in the wizarding world. If you take a look at their family tree, you'll find twisted branches and a deep, dark history at its roots. That's because they were well known for their obsession with pureblood status, which eventually aligned with a notable allegiance to the Dark Lord.
You have proved yourself useful these past few months, Wormtail.
Some members of the Black family, however, rejected the notion of a pureblood belief held by many of their ancestors. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the stories of the traitors in the House of Black, whose names and portraits were burnt off their family tapestry.
My mother did that after I ran away. Charming woman.
In the 1930s, an anonymously published list of 28 family names claimed to contain all truly pure-blooded families in Britain. Known as the Sacred 28, this list included well-known families like Malfoy, Longbottom, Ollivander, and Weasley. It also included the House of Black.
My parents with their pure blood mania.
A few families rejected their inclusion on this list, especially the Weasleys. They didn't claim to be pureblood and were proud of their Muggle ancestral ties.
We have a very different idea about what disgraces the name of wizard, Malfoy.
Other families, however, embraced purebloodedness with intrinsic value and celebrated their inclusion on the list. These families took measures against any action that they believed would make their family impure, such as marrying a Muggle or half-blood.
You'll be next, mudbloods.
The House of Black was obsessed with their bloodline and its purity. Their family became supporters of Lord Voldemort during his rise to power, with many family members becoming followers of the Dark Lord, including Bellatrix Lestrange and Regulus Black.
My lord, I'd like to volunteer myself for this task.
But being born into the Black family was no guarantee of allegiance to purebloodedness or the Dark Lord. As Sirius put it, the world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters.
We've all got both light and dark inside us.
Here's who the House of Black declared as blood traitors and ultimately burnt off the family tapestry. Iola Black was one of the earliest ancestors to be removed. She was the sister of Phineas Nigellus Black, famously known as the least popular headmaster of Hogwarts.
You wished to see me, headmaster?
Iola was disowned by the Black family for marrying a Muggle named Bob Hitchens. Phineas Nigellus Black's son, Phineas Black Jr., was also rejected from the family due to his support of Muggle rights.
Do you really intend to turn your back on your own kind for these animals?
After the wizarding community adopted the International Statute of Secrecy and went into hiding, questions arose about the relationship between magical and non-magical people.
Are those
Muggles in their rightful place?
Over the next century, this led to an increase in prejudice against Muggles, but also a rise in people like Phineas, who defended Muggles. In the next generation, Cedrella Black married Septimus Weasley. Though the Weasleys are also part of the Sacred 28, Cedrella's portrait was burnt out for associating with a family who did not share pureblood ideals.
As the Muggles say, truth will out.
But now the Black and Weasley families were forever connected. Sirius even mentions that he and Molly Weasley are indeed cousins. The Black family's pureblood pride was strict. Marrying or supporting Muggles wasn't the only way to get rejected from the family. Pureblood family member Marius Black was burnt off the tapestry simply for being born a squib. Squibs are non-magical people born into magical families, so they have a tough place in the wizarding world.
Oh dear, we are in trouble.
They're aware of magic but unable to perform it, and because of this, some are unfairly treated. Marius was viewed as shameful in the eyes of his family, even though he couldn't help it. Next, we have Andromeda Black, the sister of Bellatrix and Narcissa. Andromeda was shunned from the family after marrying a Muggle-born wizard named Ted Tonks. That's right, Nymphadora Tonks is her daughter.
Don't call me Nymphadora.
Even though Andromeda looked a lot like her sister Bellatrix, she did not support Voldemort. Andromeda and her family were actually pivotal in the fight against him, with her own daughter becoming an Auror and a member of the Order of the Phoenix. Regulus Arcturus Black was Sirius's younger brother and the pride of his parents.
Ah, yes. Regulus Black.
He seemed to fit the mold of the Black family as a Slytherin who embraced dark magic. As a teenager, he joined Lord Voldemort and was happy to serve in a mission to bring wizards out of hiding to rule over muggles. But of course, there's more to this story. A year after joining the Death Eaters, Regulus volunteered Kreacher, the Black family house elf, to assist Voldemort.
Kreacher has been watching.
Later, he found out Kreacher was taken to a cave and forced to drink a basin of burning potion. Voldemort had used Kreacher to test the defenses of a locket, which was a Horcrux.
He took many things, including the locket.
Kreacher was able to escape, and Regulus switched allegiances shortly after. With Kreacher's help, he was able to steal the Horcrux locket and switch it with a replica that had a note signed with his initials R.A.B.
R.A.B.
Dunno.
Regulus ordered Kreacher to leave the cave and destroy the real locket. He didn't last long after that.
Before Master Regulus died, he ordered Kreacher to destroy it, but no matter how hard Kreacher tried, he could not do it.
As Sirius grimly states in the books, you don't just hand in your resignation to Voldemort. Regulus sacrificed himself in hopes that one day the Dark Lord would be defeated. And finally, the ultimate rebel, Sirius Black.
What's life without a little risk?
Sirius was definitely not into his family's pureblood obsession. His parents constantly reminded him that they thought his younger brother Regulus was a much better son. Fortunately, he found a new family at Hogwarts who understood and appreciated him. Sirius was sorted into Gryffindor, which was rare for the Black family, who were usually sorted into Slytherin.
Slytherin!
After befriending James Potter, Sirius ran away from home and stayed with the Potter family during summer holidays.
I was 16. I was always welcome at the Potters.
His uncle Alfred assisted him with a decent bit of gold in his will that Sirius used to purchase a home and start a new life. As a result, both of them were burnt from the family tree. During the First Wizarding War, Sirius joined the Order of the Phoenix with his friends to take on the fight against Lord Voldemort.
It's been 14 years.
He was one of the few members who survived the First War and rejoined the Order again as Voldemort rose to power during the Second Wizarding War.
Nice one, James!
Sirius tragically met his death at the hands of his cousin Bellatrix. Toujours pure, the cruel Black family motto that means always pure. Sirius and his rebellious ancestors rejected that message to take a stand against pureblood supremacy and ultimately were disowned from their family. But true family can sometimes be the ones you choose.
Ones that love us never really leave us. And you can always find them. In here.
More than 1,000 years ago, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry was founded by 4 great witches and wizards: Godric Gryffindor, Rowena Ravenclaw, Helga Hufflepuff, and Salazar Slytherin. As the Sorting Hat told us, their reason for doing so was because they had the self-same yearning to make the world's best magic school, and once they did, each created their own house to represent the different virtues they valued and wanted to nurture. At the time of Hogwarts' founding, the world was dangerous for witches and wizards, who were being persecuted by muggles hostile to magic, while certain witches and wizards discriminated the non-magical too.
Yes, Draco's told me all about you. And your parents.
Muggles? Papa?
Hogwarts was built somewhere in the Scottish Highlands and concealed with numerous charms and spells to keep it far from prying Muggle eyes. For instead of an enormous school, any passing Muggle would only see ruins and signs warning them of danger. As for the building itself, much of the design and construction of Hogwarts remains a mystery to this day. Even Albus Dumbledore admitted that he did not know all of its secrets. But what of the four founders themselves? What are their stories? And how did they come to shape the future of Hogwarts? Godric Gryffindor from Wildmoor was born in Godric's Hollow, the future home of many well-known witches and wizards, from Bathilda Bagshot to the Potters themselves. Exceptionally brave, Godric was the most accomplished duelist of his time. Notably, he wielded a beautiful sword, encrusted with rubies and fashioned from goblin-made silver. This sword is enchanted to always return to a true Gryffindor, something Harry Potter would one day discover for himself. Helga Hufflepuff from Valley Broad was a kind and accepting witch who only needed her students to be just and loyal. At Hogwarts, she was known to be deeply talented at food-related charms. The Hogwarts feast have been a staple for centuries, and some of Helga's traditional recipes still adorn the tables. Helga can be seen holding her golden cup aloft in her portrait that hangs in the Hufflepuff common room. Rowena Ravenclaw from Glen championed Hogwarts pupils who were studious. She probably would have adored Hermione, who wasn't even in her house.
I checked this out weeks ago, forbidden light reading.
This is light.
Known for her wit and love of learning, she wore a beautiful diadem that was said to grant wisdom to the wearer. Alas, Rowena's story is a tragic one. Her daughter, Helena Ravenclaw, desired nothing more than to be cleverer than her mother. Jealous of her mother's wisdom bestowed by the diadem, she stole it and ran away. Rowena sent a man she knew to be in love with her daughter to find her, but in a twist of fate, he stabbed her in a blind rage when she refused to come home. Legend tells us that Rowena Ravenclaw would go on to die of a broken heart. The history of this sad tale lives on inside Hogwarts Castle forever. Helena's murderer would be known to future Hogwarts students as the Bloody Baron, the ghost of Slytherin that roams the castle forevermore, encased in chains, which he wore to serve penance for his crime. Helena Ravenclaw would also live on mournfully as a ghost, representing her mother's house at Hogwarts. Must have been a bit awkward when you think about it. Salazar Slytherin from Fen was a talented wizard skilled in legilimency and parseltongue, a talent passed through his bloodline all the way to Tom Marvolo Riddle, aka Lord Voldemort. Unfortunately, Salazar's cruel ideas about magical purity would go on to influence this very descendant, who would become one of the darkest wizards in history. 1,000 years before that, however, these beliefs shattered the partnership of the four Hogwarts founders. The founders of Hogwarts were originally good friends, but that changed once it became clear that Salazar had a very different idea of what he wanted Hogwarts to be.
Salazar Slytherin wished to be more selective about the students admitted to Hogwarts. He believed magical learning should be kept within all magic families. In other words, purebloods.
Salazar believed wizarding kind should not mix with anyone who wasn't pureblood, aka witches and wizards who had any non-magical parents or family members. For example, we imagine Salazar would not have looked fondly on young Seamus Finnegan here.
I'm half and half. My dad's a muggle. Mum's a witch.
Thankfully, the other three Hogwarts house founders did not agree with Salazar, especially the valiant Godric Gryffindor, founder of the house that would one day call to Harry Potter.
Gryffindor!
It was actually due to an argument between Salazar and Godric that eventually led to the former's departure from Hogwarts, but not before he built a dark chamber underneath the Hogwarts grounds, which held a horrific beast called a basilisk that would go on to affect future Hogwarts generations. The chamber became a myth for many years, as only the heir of Slytherin would be able to open it and unleash a beast on Muggle-born students. Salazar's descendant, Lord Voldemort, was successful at this, first as a student and again during Harry's second year at Hogwarts.
It is as we feared, Minerva. The Chamber of Secrets has indeed been opened again.
This was one of the many ways Lord Voldemort tried to reignite Salazar Slytherin's legacy. In fact, Voldemort was so fascinated by the artifacts of Hogwarts' past, he procured the House Founder's possessions to create some of the wizarding world's most dark and heinous magic. This included a locket and a ring once owned by Salazar Slytherin. But Slytherin's story doesn't quite end with Lord Voldemort. There was another descendant of his, an Irish witch named Isolde Sayre, who would go on to create her own wizarding school in America, which she named Ilvermorny. Isolde's kindness and acceptance were nothing like that of her ancestor, and she used her heritage to tell her own story, even bearing the remains of Salazar Slytherin's wand, once used for evil, to grow into a powerful snakewood tree that held medicinal qualities. And as for the other house founders, their wit, kindness, and bravery can be found running through all sorts of great witches and wizards that studied at Hogwarts. Even future Slytherin students would not necessarily adhere to Salazar Slytherin's ways of thinking, proving that Slytherin House's reputation could be changed.
Before you can take your seats, you must be sorted into your houses.
To keep the tradition alive for centuries to come, the four founders enchanted a hat, rumored to be owned by Godric Gryffindor, which was magically able to sort Hogwarts students forevermore.
Okay. Gryffindor!
The sorting hat is said to be skilled at legilimency, the ability to see inside people's minds. Pretty impressive for a hat. Like with anyone, the Hogwarts founders had both triumphs and challenges. Their stories, and even their memories, live on at Hogwarts through its students, its ghosts, its staff, and its teachers. Remember, these four founders may have laid the foundations of Hogwarts, but so many future witches and wizards would help build upon it, or even reshape their history. Sometimes for the worse, but mostly for the better.
Remus Lupin is one of the most beloved characters in the wizarding world, but he is also one who shouldered some of the heaviest burdens. Today we explore the life of Lupin and how it came to be marked by tragedy, and how Lupin, and those around him, chose to challenge it. You all know Remus Lupin as Harry's best defence against the dark arts professor, not that there was particularly stiff competition. Nonetheless, Lupin's teaching style at Hogwarts was a breath of fresh air when he was introduced in the third story, as proven by his legendary boggart lesson.
Ridiculous!
Lupin's wisdom and serenity quickly turned him into a mentor for Harry, encouraging his passion for defence against the dark arts and teaching him lessons far beyond his years. Not only does Lupin teach Harry how to produce the highly advanced Patronus charm, a spell that will protect him from the ghastly magical creatures, the Dementors, but he also helped Harry reconcile his own personal tragedies, turning them into strengths.
Expecto Patronum!
And it wasn't long before we learnt that Lupin's connection to Harry went far deeper than just being his teacher, when it was revealed that he was one of Harry's father's best friends.
Your father, James, on the other hand, he had a certain, shall we say, talent for trouble. The talent, rumour has it, he passed on to you. You're more like them than you know, Harry. In time, you'll come to see just how much.
Despite coming across as such a talented, influential teacher that his students looked up to, there was another part of Lupin that cast a shadow over his whole life. This was the thing that cost him his job, held him back from relationships, and led to him living a life off the beaten track. Remus Lupin was a werewolf. Werewolves were pariahs in the wizarding community. Once bitten by a werewolf on a full moon, a wizard or witch would become one themselves, which involved a painful transformation every month into a vicious creature, far removed from their own sense of self. Interestingly, if someone were to be attacked by a werewolf in their human form, like Bill Weasley was, they would not become a fully fledged werewolf, but might develop a few wolfish characteristics, like a fondness for rare meat.
Just remember, Fleur, Bill takes his steaks on the raw side now.
Within the wizarding world, the stigma around becoming a werewolf was enormous. Those who suffered this fate were so shunned that most dropped out of society almost completely. The Ministry of Magic could never figure out how to handle the werewolf population, debating whether they would be considered human or bestial, and should the Beast Division or Being Division of the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures deal with them. One measure the Ministry came up with was the Werewolf Registry, but it was hardly effective. Werewolves were supposed to enter their name and personal details, but many did not, especially the newly bitten, who wanted to hide their werewolf status to try to avoid being ostracized. Lupin himself often kept a low profile for this reason. So how did Lupin become a werewolf? To answer that, we need to go back to his childhood. In his youth, life was relatively simple. Lupin's father was a wizard named Lyle Lupin, an expert in non-human spirituous apparitions including poltergeists and boggarts, and his mother, Hope, was a muggle. Yet Remus grew up under the shadow of an ever-growing threat. By the time that he was 4 years old, dark magical activity was steadily increasing. Unbeknownst to most, Voldemort had begun to rally his Death Eaters and recruit dark creatures, such as werewolves, to help overthrow the Ministry of Magic. To tackle the threat, the Ministry asked experts on such creatures to help them. When Lupin's father Lyle was called in, he encountered the notorious werewolf Fenrir Greyback, who had been brought in for questioning about the murder of 2 Muggle children. Greyback refused to admit that he was a werewolf and tried to pretend that he was just a vagrant Muggle. This is where Lyle made his big mistake. He saw through Greyback's lies and tried to tell the questioning committee, who just laughed at him. He lost his temper, declaring werewolves were soulless, evil, deserving nothing but death. Greyback was released and fled, but he remembered Lyle's words and sought his revenge. Known for preying on the young, Greyback took out his revenge on Lyle's son, breaking into the family home shortly before Remus's 5th birthday and attacking him, changing his life forever. In a cruel twist of fate, Lyle's outburst sparked a chain of events leading to his own son suffering the very same prejudices. After his transformation, Lupin's family had to move around a lot, and Lupin was discouraged from playing with other children. However, there was one place where Remus found a consistent home: Hogwarts. Thanks to a friendly invitation by the always open-minded Albus Dumbledore. There, he found not 1, but 3 best friends: James Potter, Sirius Black, and Peter Pettigrew. These 3 stood by Remus when they discovered the reason for his monthly disappearances, lovingly nicknamed his very little problem, and decided to try and make his life a tad easier. The group realised that they would be safe to be around Remus if they too took on a magical form, so became Animagi. The lack of judgment and humour built around this friendship gave Lupin a new lease of life, and even a sly nickname referencing his condition, Moony. As for the group as a whole, they dubbed themselves the Marauders, giving themselves new monikers. There was James the Stag, known as Prongs, Sirius the Dog, known as Padfoot. Finally, there was Peter the Rat, known as Wormtail. Using humour to conquer the darker corners of life would be a lesson Lupin would carry through into his adulthood and teach to others. After all, the first spell we see Lupin teach his class, Ridiculous, is a piece of magic born from learning to laugh at your fears.
Come on, wand at the ready, Ron, wand at the ready.
Ridiculous!
Yes! You see? Very good, very good.
The Marauders' creativity led to other masterful pieces of magic that helped Lupin, and even future Hogwarts generations. Yes, the famous Marauders map that encouraged people to solemnly swear they were up to no good was founded so that the quartet could roam Hogwarts Castle freely, finding secret exits and keeping an eye on roaming members of staff. The making of the Marauders map would pave the path for future adventurers, such as Fred and George Weasley, and soon after, James's son, Harry Potter himself, who would end up finding it extremely useful.
What's this rubbish?
What's this rubbish, she says. That there is the secret to our success.
So, although Remus found happier days at Hogwarts, his adult life was often marred by his condition. Away from the safety of the castle, he found it difficult to secure employment. He couldn't stay in one place for too long, and it even hampered his relationships.
You know the man you truly are, Remus. This heart is where you truly live. This heart here.
Thankfully for Lupin, there were things that could help him live an easier life, such as kind friends and a healthy supply of wolfsbane potion, a concoction that could calm down his wolfish transformations. And the support of Albus Dumbledore would give Lupin a new family, an important placement in the resistance group, the Order of the Phoenix. Here, he would meet his future wife, Tonks, with whom he would go on to have a son, Teddy, Harry's godson with the ability to change his appearance at will, just like his metamorphmagus mother.
My husband, the Joker.
After all, Remus was a tremendously clever and talented wizard, despite the trials he had to overcome. Lupin soon learnt to put that energy into encouraging others who also struggled with self-belief and felt like outsiders. And we're not just thinking about Harry.
Ridiculous!
Wonderful, Neville, wonderful, incredible, okay.
Despite his life being blighted by his affliction, there were moments of joy for Remus. In a lot of ways, he broke the mould for what life as a werewolf should look like. Yes, he spent many years living on the fringes of society, but that wasn't his entire story. Unlike the life of Fenrir Greyback, who chose to inflict vicious cruelty on the world, Lupin spent a lot of his time putting kindness back into it.
Eat. You'll feel better.
Quite frankly, there was an awful lot going on for this kind, clever, and talented wizard, more than he probably ever realised, and that defiance was so much stronger than the glow of any full moon. In the wizarding world, we encounter so many fascinating spells.
Ferraverto.
Some useful, some a little more dangerous, and some that show us just how beautiful and powerful magic can be. Today, we're thinking about the Patronus charm, a complicated and immense spell using hope and happiness to conjure a silvery animal which acts as a guardian to the caster. The Patronus charm is used to protect wizards and witches from the darkness of the wizarding world, most famously known for warding off the awful magical non-beings, the Dementors. But a Patronus, and the form it takes, also reveals a part of yourself through the vision of this majestic silver animal. But why? What makes a Patronus unique to the caster? In the Harry Potter stories, we discover several characters' Patronuses, with some forms revealing a deeper truth. J.K. Rowling defines the Patronus as representing that which is hidden in a person, an awakened secret self that lies dormant when needed. A Patronus appears to be able to reflect people's personalities, their desires, their family, or even a loved one. Famously, Harry has a stag that mirrors his late father's animagus form, and shows Harry that he and James Potter are deeply and eternally connected.
It was my dad who conjured the Patronus.
Harry, your dad's...
Dead, I know. I'm just telling you what I saw.
Patronuses can serve as manifestations in other ways too. Perhaps the most tragic example of this? It could only be Severus Snape's Patronus, which was the same as his long-lost love, Lily Potter.
Always.
We also know that a Patronus can change form, depending on someone's personal circumstances. For example, in the books, Nymphadora Tonks' Patronus changes from a jackrabbit to a wolf when she falls in love with Remus Lupin, a reference to Lupin's very little problem. So if someone has an animal that is already personal to them, it seems this can also influence a Patronus's form. For example, a witch or wizard that also happens to be an animagus is likely to have a matching Patronus. For instance, Professor McGonagall can turn into a cat at will, and her Patronus? Also a cat.
That was bloody brilliant.
This makes sense, as both McGonagall and our feline friends never suffer fools gladly. But some Patronuses are a little more abstract, and we can only make educated guesses on what they may mean. Take Hermione's Patronus, for example, an otter. But why an otter? With Hermione's great wisdom, you might have thought she'd have a dolphin or an owl.
I checked this out weeks ago for a bit of light reading.
This is light.
But otters are pretty canny too. They also happen to be J.K. Rowling's favourite animal. Not only that, but otters are known as adventurous and playful creatures, a side to Hermione that we get to see the more we get to know her.
sort of exciting, isn't it? Breaking the rules.
And you could also interpret that an otter comes from the same family of mammals as the weasel. Weasel kind of sounds like something else.
Ron Weasley.
Pleasure.
Side note, Ron's dad, Arthur Weasley, actually has a weasel for his Patronus. Weasels tend to be very cunning animals, and although you may not think of Arthur Weasley to be sneaky, he did have his moments.
Your sons flew that enchanted car of yours to Surrey and back last night.
Did you really? How'd it go?
This brings us on nicely to Ron's Patronus, a Jack Russell Terrier, a bit of a random choice. But on closer inspection, this is quintessentially Ron. First and foremost, a dog is known as a loyal companion, one of Ron's greatest attributes. Then there's a Jack Russell specifically, a dog known to be fearless.
I'll be a knight.
But also pretty stubborn.
Let's vote on it. Those in favour?
Luna Lovegood also has a beloved furry creature as a Patronus. A friendly hare. Yes, regrettably, not a Nargle. Luna's eccentric personality fits a hare quite well. Firstly, there's the phrase, as mad as a March hare, which some people may perhaps say is fitting for Luna.
Everyone that says Luna Lovegood.
But it goes a little deeper than that. Hares are often referenced in folklore to be associated with the moon. Luna's name in Latin also means moon.
That's nice.
And remember how we told you Tonks' original Patronus was a jackrabbit? A jackrabbit is also a form of a hare, and her future husband Remus's connection to the moon is clear. Coincidence? But sometimes a person's Patronus really isn't that complicated. Can you take a wild guess at what Dolores Umbridge's might be, for example? No further explanation required. But for someone a bit more complex, a Patronus can be a fascinating extension to them. Professor Dumbledore, for example, has a magical creature as a Patronus, a phoenix, just like his friend Fawkes. This makes absolute perfect sense, with Dumbledore and his family being intrinsically linked to this magical bird for many years. Dumbledore even named the secret society he founded the Order of the Phoenix. And with Dumbledore being so generally amazing, we're not surprised in the slightest that he has such a fantastic beast for a Patronus. So, as we've learnt, a Patronus can sometimes seem like a logical interpretation of your character, or on other occasions, can teach you something about your inner self that you might never have known. So how about you? On wizardingworld.com, you can take our Patronus experience and discover your own silvery animal guardian. We have over 100 creatures, with some rarer than others, you could discover by answering a few simple prompts. Our most popular Patronus is a dolphin, which is a good sign. Dolphins are notoriously friendly, intelligent, and elegant mammals, so we're heartened that so many of you discovered that one. But like Dumbledore, you too could find a more magical creature in our collection, from unicorns to fiery dragons. So why not log in to wizardingworld.com and discover yours today? Just remember to think of a happy thought.
Hufflepuff!
You've just been sorted into Hufflepuff. Brilliant news! And we imagine you're keen to explore your new house. Founded by Helga Hufflepuff, this house values those who are just, loyal, and unafraid of toil. And while Hufflepuff might have been underestimated by the wizarding community...
Everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of duffers, but I bet I'm in Hufflepuff, said Harry gloomily.
We know that it is a house bursting with potential. As a member of this house, what does this all mean for you? Let's find out.
Flaps tight down and watch me closely.
From its hard-working heroes to its rich history, join us as we explore all things Hufflepuff. To discover who you are, let's take a look into Hufflepuff's fascinating history. When Hogwarts was created, Helga Hufflepuff decided that her house would be full of people who were trustworthy and down to earth, ready to roll their sleeves up and get stuck in.
You pull it sharply up out of the pot!
And when you look at Hufflepuff House and its members, that hard-working nature and general kindness stands out. You can feel Hufflepuff vibes everywhere, even in their common room. Like the other house common rooms, Hufflepuff's reflects the personality of its founder and those who belong in her house. Even the way you enter it can give you insight into what it means to be a Hufflepuff. To enter your common room, located near the Hogwarts kitchens,
you must tap the barrel, 2 from the bottom, middle of the second row, in the rhythm of Helga Hufflepuff.
But beware, If you get it wrong, you'll be squirted in the face with vinegar. But how does this rather pungent booby trap relate to your personality as a Hufflepuff? Well, Hufflepuffs have a tendency to be underestimated. Yet, like the badger on your emblem, or the barrels guarding the entrance to your common room, when provoked, you will snap back, becoming a truly loyal defender.
Get down! Got it, sir! Expelliarmus!
Inside the common room, the homage to the humble badger continues, with the cosy and low-ceilinged room which is nestled into the ground, said to resemble a badger set. Incidentally, Hufflepuff is tied to the element Earth, making this the perfect home for all of its more grounded members.
I'm gonna put you back where you belong, aren't I, Frank? To the wilds of Arizona.
Said Hufflepuff, I'll teach the lot and treat them just the same.
Let's make one thing clear. While Hufflepuff is a house which is incredibly welcoming, if it simply was the case that it took the lot without thinking about what makes Hufflepuff unique, then there would be a few extra familiar faces in this house. Take Neville Longbottom, a Gryffindor student who was asked to be sorted into Hufflepuff.
Why is it always me?
Well, the sorting hat has been known to take personal preferences into consideration before.
Not Slytherin, eh?
But in this instance, after a battle of wills that almost made Neville a hat stool, the sorting hat decided that he demonstrated traits that belonged to Gryffindor rather than Hufflepuff.
Better be Gryffindor!
Neville learned that Hufflepuff isn't just a default house for those unsure where to go. It is far more nuanced than all of that.
We're gonna make them proud, Neville. That's a promise.
Hufflepuffs are known to be unafraid of toil, but that doesn't mean that they are constantly doing chores. While they might not be winning the House Cup every year, or top of the Quidditch results, they have their own superstars. Look at Cedric Diggory.
This strapping young lad must be Cedric, am I right?
A real poster boy for his house. Prefect, Quidditch hero, heartthrob, and Hogwarts champion in the Tri-Wizard tournament.
The Hogwarts champion, Cedric Diggory!
Cedric challenged the stereotypes Hufflepuffs face. He proved that his house is capable of greatness and just as worthy of the spotlight.
Some game, huh?
And he wasn't the only Hufflepuff to shine. Allow us to open the history books for a moment. One of the most popular ministers for magic, Grogan Stump, for example, was a Hufflepuff who established the Department of Magical Games and Sports and created protective laws around certain magical creatures. Kindness to fantastic beasts certainly seems to be in Hufflepuff blood.
That is exactly why they accuse me of favouritism.
Then there was Bridget Wenlock, the famous arithmancer who first discovered the magical properties of the number 7. Medieval wizard Hengist of Woodcroft founded the village of Hogsmeade.
These visits to Hogsmeade Village are a privilege.
You can find Hufflepuff legacy everywhere. All of these great figures help to disprove one stereotype about Hufflepuff that just won't seem to go away. They prove that Hufflepuff members are just as intelligent as those in any other house.
Exactly.
Like the green-fingered Professor Sprout.
Morning, everyone.
She knew everything about magical flora and fungi.
Today, we're going to repot mandrakes.
If it wasn't for Sprout and her mandrakes, Hermione and the others may never have woken up after being petrified by the basilisk.
Hermione.
Sprout was also responsible for creating one of the obstacles that guarded the Philosopher's Stone, the Devil's Snare. Such ingenious thinking even outwitted Hermione for a moment.
This is Devil's Snare. You have to relax. If you don't, it'll only kill you faster.
Kill us faster? Oh, now I can relax.
This more naturalistic intelligence showed how Hufflepuffs like Sprout relied on plants and other elements of the earth to solve problems. What better way to thrive than by being at one with nature? Perhaps that is something that speaks to you. If not, don't worry. Here's another Hufflepuff that might speak to you more. Legendary magizoologist Newt Scamander showed that Hufflepuffs could be as adventurous as any Gryffindor. While Newt may have seemed more gentle, he travelled the world looking for weird, wonderful, and often dangerous magical creatures.
Come on, into the case.
And throughout all of his adventures, the dangerous situations he faced, and the dark wizards he battled, he managed to stay true to the Hufflepuff traits of fairness and doing what is right.
You know what you got to do.
He might have been introverted, but that didn't stop him from exploring new and exciting places and standing up for his community. Which reminds us of another great Hufflepuff. A riot of colour, humour, bravery, with a dash of clumsiness. Tonks demonstrated that Hufflepuffs are, amongst other things, cool. Tonks worked hard as a talented aura, but also embraced the fun in life, like her punky style and metamorphmagus abilities. Is Tonks a character you relate to?
You may not be able to transform your nose at will, but perhaps you connect to her audacious personality.
Don't call me Nymphadora.
However, there is one thing that the other houses have that Hufflepuff lacks. Dark wizards and witches.
More murder!
In fact, out of all of the houses, Hufflepuff has produced the least amount of dark witches and wizards. So, if anyone tries to diminish your house, this is an incredibly useful stat to hit back with.
Correct. 3 points to Hufflepuff.
This is just one of the many reasons why you should be proud to be counted as a member of this house, the one that leads with kindness. And while you might have to avoid people's preconceptions about what it means to be a Hufflepuff, you know that this house is strong yet tender, diligent yet merry. From Cedric Diggory to Nymphadora Tonks, and not forgetting Newt Scamander, a lot of the wizarding world's most loyal, fairest, and greatest witches and wizards came from this house. It is a place where you can be yourself and where altruism is valued. Now that is important. In a world where we often forget to be good to one another, being in a house which strives for equality can only be a positive thing. You see, Hagrid was wrong. Hufflepuff is not full of duffers.
I shouldn't have said that. I should not have said that.
It's full of heroes.
Slytherin, the Hogwarts house of shrewd ambition with an unfortunate reputation.
Slytherin!
Some of which is deserved.
Support.
And some that doesn't tell the whole story of a character. But one thing we can agree upon is that Slytherin's house is full of mysteries. From the Chamber of Secrets to family heirlooms, the imprint of Salazar Slytherin ran deep within the walls of Hogwarts for many centuries. Today, we're going to delve deep and explore the impact that this notorious man and his heirs had on the wizarding world. Settle in as we unravel some of Salazar Slytherin's most sinister secrets. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry was founded by 4 great witches and wizards: Godric Gryffindor, Rowena Ravenclaw, Helga Hufflepuff, and last but by no means least, Salazar Slytherin. Together, they wanted to create the best magical school in the world by combining their talents. Sounds perfect. At first. Alas, Salazar's unsavoury views forced a wedge between the founders.
There's some wizards, like the Malfoy family, who think they're better than everyone else because they're what people call pure blood.
Indeed, Slytherin wanted Hogwarts to only accept pure-blood students, whom he believed to be superior. You can learn more about purebloods in our other handy video, by the way. Salazar openly wrote about why he believed purebloods to be of a higher caliber, making many dubious claims. He alleged that purebloods showcased magical abilities at a much earlier age, resisted illnesses, and were likely to have outstanding physical attractiveness. He even claimed that they had a fear of pigs, thanks to the animal's reputation for being thoroughly non-magical and notoriously difficult to charm. Studies from the Ministry of Magic's Department of Mysteries have since debunked all of that.
What a load of rubbish.
Nonetheless, many believed Salazar's words. Laws were passed in the wizarding world, such as the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy. Whilst this law was designed to protect Muggles, it also managed to nurture the divide between them and the wizarding community. Thankfully, many years before all of this, Salazar's pureblood ideals were rejected by his fellow Hogwarts founders.
3 of the founders coexisted quite harmoniously. 1 did not.
And so were some of his other unpalatable teaching philosophies. Unlike his fellow founders, Salazar wanted to teach the students of Hogwarts about dark magic.
There's not a witch or wizard who went bad who wasn't in Slytherin.
Hidden away from prying eyes, his secret underground lair, right in the belly of the castle, was created. And so, Salazar built the Chamber of Secrets. A place that reflected his grandiose ideas of his own importance and talent, including a giant statue of himself. Even the snakes carved around the chamber were a reference to his abilities as a Parselmouth.
There's a reason the symbol of Slytherin House is a serpent. Salazar Slytherin was a Parselmouth. He could talk to snakes too.
And although Salazar soon left the quartet, his mark on the castle was already made. Within the chamber, he left behind a basilisk. This terrifying beast could petrify or kill with just one look. Only those descended from Salazar, who spoke Parseltongue, could control the great snake. This ability was just one of the many heritages Salazar passed down his bloodline. Thanks to his unwelcome connection with Lord Voldemort, Harry Potter also had the ability, leading to a lot of unwanted rumours about being a certain heir.
Fred and George, however, found all this very funny. They went out of their way to march ahead of Harry down the corridors, shouting, "Make way for the heir of Slytherin, seriously evil wizard coming through."
Actually, that dubious honour rested with a young student called Tom Riddle, who attended Hogwarts 50 years prior to Harry. You might have heard of him. Through a combination of manipulation, scheming and attempted murder, Tom Riddle managed to open the chamber twice without being detected. And though Tom didn't know of his forebears for some time, growing up in an orphanage, his cruelty mirrored that of his long-past ancestor Salazar. The rest of Tom's immediate family, the Gaunts, were a perfect, horrid reflection of Salazar, with his late mother, Merope, being the only member with any heart. But by this point in the lineage, the power of the Slytherin pedigree was fading. The Gaunts were penniless, living in a tumble-down shack with only their priceless heirlooms holding any real value. Eventually, Tom seized the locket, with the future Dark Lord realising his ancestor held great status and power. This locket proved that he was part of a bigger legacy, and no matter how twisted a legacy, Tom began to obsess over Slytherin's centuries-old values.
One day, I would be able to lead another to finish Salazar Slytherin's noble work.
The locket fueled Tom's fascination with treasures and trinkets, a fascination he had held since he was a young boy, with Dumbledore theorising,
Lord Voldemort liked to collect trophies, and he preferred objects with a powerful magical history. His pride, his belief in his own superiority, his determination to carve for himself a startling place in magical history. These things suggest to me that Voldemort would have chosen his Horcruxes with some care, favouring objects worthy of the honour.
We wonder if Salazar would have been proud of his dark magic-obsessed heir. With the dark magic of Horcruxes, Tom was able to split his soul into pieces and conceal them in a variety of objects. He was even able to open the chamber yet again through a memory of himself that inhabited an old diary, more than 50 years later. And by doing so, he influenced other members of Slytherin who considered being the heir a great honour. Draco Malfoy was particularly excited about the chamber's reopening.
The last time the Chamber of Secrets was opened, a mudblood died. So it's only a matter of time before one of them is killed this time.
So Salazar's pure-blood ideology spread into Hogwarts' future, and there is clear evidence that previous heirs had opened the chamber too. In fact, it was a lot easier to open back in the day. When it was first created, the chamber was accessed via a series of magical tunnels and a trapdoor. It wasn't until the plumbing at Hogwarts became more sophisticated in the 18th century that things changed. Who knew that the intricacies of plumbing would lead to one of Hogwarts' most perilous storylines?
Come on.
With the entrance to the chamber about to be made inaccessible thanks to a new bathroom, it was saved by, you've guessed it, another heir of Slytherin, Corvinus Gaunt. Gaunt made sure the trapdoor was protected and that those who knew where the entrance was could still access the chamber, and the bathroom built on it. That would become the bathroom haunted by one of the basilisk's victims, Moaning Myrtle.
You're welcome to share my toilet.
Thanks, Myrtle.
For years, the Chamber of Secrets was left undisturbed. There were whispers, of course, rumours of a monster that moved in the walls and the plumbing, which can't have been good for the pipes. Those whispers were often fueled by the heirs themselves. The Gaunt family, in particular, couldn't help but boast about their knowledge of Slytherin's creation. Indeed, one of Slytherin's greatest legacies was also his greatest curse. His descendants weren't very good at keeping their secrets, especially when there was an opportunity to gloat. To many, the Chamber and the heir of Slytherin were purely a thing of legend. That is, until the last of Slytherin's heirs came calling. With the arrival of Tom Riddle and the unleashing of the basilisk, Salazar's secret was no more. The horror at the heart of Hogwarts was brought out of the shadows. And although Slytherin's repugnant philosophy about how to run Hogwarts still existed in the minds of a few,
Let us preserve what must be preserved.
thankfully, his most infamous heir and his chamber can no longer instill fear at Hogwarts. It's clear that those who belong to Slytherin are so much more than their infamous founder. As Sirius Black once said, we've all got both light and dark inside of us. What matters is the part we choose to act on. That's who we really are. And with so many Slytherins rejecting their dark reputation, it leaves Salazar's sinister legacy in tatters. In fact,
it's just a memory.
Susan Bones.
Hufflepuff!
So you've been sorted into Hufflepuff, a house known for patience, loyalty, hard work, and all the snacks. Seriously though, the best snacks. There's a good reason for this. The Hufflepuff common room entrance is in the same corridor as the Hogwarts kitchens. Though Harry never enters this common room in the books, we do know details about its cozy feel. Let's take a look at how this room was recreated in Hogwarts Legacy. The entrance can be found near a stack of large barrels. Tap the barrel that is 2 from the bottom, middle of the second row, in the rhythm of Helga Hufflepuff. Be warned, an incorrect tap will douse you in vinegar. It's a security measure. Enter the passageway that opens up into a cozy, round room reminiscent of a badger's den. The common room has an earthy feel. In fact, Hufflepuff's house colors, yellow and black, convey the earth element, representing wheat and soil. A variety of beautiful, bright plants and flowers surround the atmosphere. Scattered throughout the room, bouncing cacti greet you with delight. Above, you'll see hanging copper planters with dangling ferns and ivies, and the room feels quite bright, with circular windows and dome lighting. Professor Sprout must have felt right at home as a student. Perhaps all of the plants in the common room inspired her love of herbology. Oh, and don't mind the ghost. Hogwarts is haunted by many of them, and Hufflepuff House has its own, the Fat Friar. He was also sorted into Hufflepuff House and became a friar after graduating Hogwarts. Unfortunately, he was executed by senior churchmen who grew suspicious of his ability to cure the pox by just poking people with a stick. He also occasionally pulled rabbits out of the communion cup, which is not recommended if you're trying to blend into the Muggle world. Ghosts in the wizarding world typically have unfinished business, and even though the Fat Friar is kind and jolly, he still resents the fact that he was never made a cardinal. You'll find him floating around the fireplace where you can take a break in between classes. Above the fireplace is a portrait of Hogwarts founder Helga Hufflepuff holding her iconic golden cup. You'll notice the wooden mantelpiece, which is carved with decorative dancing badgers, the symbol of Hufflepuff House. There's also a portrait in here of House alum Eldritch Diggory, a former Minister of Magic who may be related to one of our favorite Hufflepuff Quidditch stars, Cedric Diggory. Just like other spots in Hogwarts, there are secrets hiding in plain sight. I won't tell you what's back there, but you might want to check out what's behind that bookcase. More circular doors are beyond the main common room. These lead to the dormitories, which are furnished with comfortable wooden bedsteads covered in patchwork quilts. Be sure to check your owl post and rest up for another day of adventure. Oh, and on your way out, don't forget to tickle the pear.
There is nothing quite like the soaring joys of Quidditch. This magical sport, played on brooms high up in the air, is a beloved pastime for many a witch or wizard.
The quaffle's in!
Whether it's the Inter-House Quidditch Cup at Hogwarts or the high drama of international tournaments, this sport is woven into the very fabric of wizarding society. Yes, it's definitely more than just a game. But how did this beloved sport come to be such a huge tradition in the wizarding world? Aren't there any other wizarding sports? And how did Quidditch even come to be? This video is in celebration of the upcoming game, Harry Potter Quidditch Champions. Coming this September, the latest Portkey game brought to you by WB Games is putting you at the centre of the Quidditch pitch to experience the euphoric highs of the sport for yourself. Now, let us take you right back to the beginning. Thanks to the work of wizard author Kenilworthy Wisp and his pivotal textbook, Quidditch Through the Ages, we have a decent idea of the game's inception. So, what came before Quidditch? What did ancient witches and wizards do for fun?
What's this all about? I don't know.
Well, before the much-loved sport was even invented, there were always brooms. The mere concept of flying has always been possible for witches or wizards, whether that's through transfiguring into birds or a humble hover charm. However, brooms gave people the freedom of flight in a more advanced way, with the added bonus that every household just so happened to have one.
Housekeeping.
The earliest versions of brooms were, of course, more rudimentary than your fancy modern-day firebolts and Nimbus 2001s, not to mention uncomfortable. But the innocent cleaning item did the job. The dawn of racing brooms really kicked off in the early 1900s when the Clean Sweep 1 revolutionised the flying tool forever, becoming the first mass-produced broom. The brand became a household name, and keen book readers may remember that the Weasley twins even had the Clean Sweep 5s many years later. Brooms paved the way for many flying games. One of the earliest, the annual Broom Race of Sweden, started out in the 10th century. The German game of Stitch Sock soon followed, where flyers had to protect a dragon bladder atop a giant pole. Well, it was a simpler time. Flashes of Quidditch are present in so many of these ancient games, played all over the world. But in the 11th century, some old accounts of a broom game being played on Quidditch Marsh in Britain revealed the origins of our favourite sport, not to mention the name. So, what did Quidditch look like in its early days? And how does it compare to the game we know and love?
Stop the presses! We have a go!
Quidditch aficionados amongst you will know all too well the modern rules of the game. Nonetheless, we'll whiz through them quickly. Put simply, the main objective of Quidditch is to score more points than the other team. The players consist of chasers, beaters, a keeper, and a seeker. The chasers aim to score with the largest ball, the quaffle, while the pesky bludgers, the black balls, fly around the pitch trying to chase the other players. Thankfully, the beaters, armed with handy bats, are around to sort them out.
With me so far?
I think so.
But the most important ball in Quidditch is the golden snitch, the one the Seeker is dedicated to finding. That's how it looks in modern times anyway, but many centuries ago, it was a little different. Firstly, the balls. While the leather quaffle has been a mainstay in the game for centuries, the bludgers, or blooders as old accounts call them, used to be quite simply giant enchanted rocks. Ouch. Then there was the golden snitch, which wasn't a ball at all, but a magical creature called a golden snidget that the players used to try and catch.
Thankfully, the game was soon modernised beyond the need for any magical creatures.
Bowman Wright, a skilled metal charmer,
Yeah, that's a thing.
invented the modern-day snitch and charmed it to fly within the parameters of the pitch to avoid any impromptu long-distance journeys. Other changes to old-school Quidditch included changing the original scoring baskets into hoops, the quaffle becoming red after its brown version kept getting lost in muddy matches, and stricter rules instated around things like broom tampering, especially after one incident where a referee's broom was turned into a portkey, transporting him to the Sahara Desert. Suffice it to say, the older versions of this beautiful game were distinctly flawed, and the rules were eventually ironed out by the Department of Magical Games and Sports at the Ministry of Magic. That all brings us pretty much up to date, and once the many quirks of Quidditch were perfected, the game became part of wizarding culture, from the forming of Quidditch leagues to the Quidditch World Cup. That's when the fun really started. With the game fully realised, players started coming up with all sorts of trick moves, zany celebrations, and clever techniques as the sport progressed. Our personal favourite? The sloth grip roll, where a player must hang upside down from their broom to dodge a bludger. Classy. The game also produced many stars of the sport, such as Ginny Weasley, who excelled at Hogwarts in both chaser and seeker positions, before going on to become a member of the all-female Quidditch team, the Holyhead Harpies. But of course, Quidditch touched many important Wizarding World characters, such as Cedric Diggory, Draco Malfoy, and of course, our very own Harry Potter. And now, you can become your own sporting hero too, with the upcoming release of Quidditch Champions hurtling its way to your games consoles very, very soon.
You can pre-order the game now at the link in our bio.
From its humble beginnings of rickety broomsticks, enchanted rocks, and madcap rules, the legendary sport of Quidditch is still flying high to this very day, charming the imaginations of witches and wizards the world over. After all, when it comes to this amazing sport, the sky's the limit.
Difficult, very difficult.
Congratulations, you've been sorted into Ravenclaw. And we imagine you're keen to explore your new house.
I wondered when I'd be seeing you.
Founded by Rowena Ravenclaw, you know that Ravenclaw prides wit, wisdom, and learning above all else. However, there is so much more to its members than excellent OWL results.
Books and cleverness. There are more important things.
Which is great, but what does that mean for you? Let's find out. From its more eccentric members to its rich history, join us as we explore all things Ravenclaw. To discover who you are, we must first delve into Ravenclaw's fascinating, and sometimes shocking, history.
You're the Grey Lady. The ghost of Ravenclaw Tower.
When Hogwarts was created, Rowena Ravenclaw decided she wanted a house full of students that reflected her brilliant brain and love of learning. And when you look at Ravenclaw House, you can see this quite clearly.
It's obvious, isn't it?
And as a new member, we imagine you have a ready mind too. And nothing demonstrates that more than the Ravenclaw Common Room.
This is the entrance to the Ravenclaw Common Room.
While Gryffindors and Slytherins are required to provide a password, and Hufflepuffs must tap a series of barrels in the correct order, Ravenclaws need to go one step further by answering a question set by a bronze eagle knocker on the common room door.
Luna reached out a pale hand, which looked eerie floating in mid-air, unconnected to arm or body. She knocked once, and in the silence it sounded to Harry like a cannon blast. At once, the beak of the eagle opened, but instead of a bird's call, a soft musical voice said, "Which came first, the phoenix or the flame?"
And if you get the question wrong, well, let's just say we hope you find stone floors comfortable. You'll be waiting there until someone else gets it right.
I won't be of much help, I'm afraid. This sort of thing has always confounded me.
Simply the mere process of getting into your common room suggests that Rowena Ravenclaw probably wanted her students to challenge themselves, even in the most mundane situations.
Well done.
And inside the common room, which just so happens to be the brightest and airiest of them all, you'll find a statue of Rowena herself. Atop her head is a replica of the famous diadem, a sapphire-encrusted tiara that increases the wearer's wisdom.
Or yet in wise old Ravenclaw, if you've a ready mind, where those of wit and learning will always find their kind.
However, if the criteria for being sorted into this house was based purely on being book smart, then there would have probably been a few extra notable members.
Difficult.
The biggest example is Hermione Granger.
Okay, relax.
The Sorting Hat took nearly 5 minutes to choose which house she belonged to, before eventually deciding she demonstrated more Gryffindor traits than Ravenclaw.
Gryffindor!
And if this proves anything, it's that there is more to Ravenclaw than meets the eye. Ravenclaws value their individuality. They can be eccentric, inventive, and likely to think outside of the box.
Hello, Harry.
It's not just about what you know, but how you react to things that shows the wisdom Ravenclaws are known for.
You're just as sane as I am.
Take Luna Lovegood. Her Ravenclaw trait was her idiosyncratic personality.
Hello, everyone.
And as we know, genius and eccentricity often go hand in hand. From her Spectre specs to her high-fashion radish earrings, she was unashamedly herself. Her unshakable belief in the crumple-horned Snorkack proved this was someone who stuck to her guns.
Oh, it's all good fun.
Crucially, Luna was emotionally intelligent, becoming one of the only people who was able to reach out to Harry in his grief when Sirius died.
My mum always said that things we lose have a way of coming back to us in the end.
Much like Luna, perhaps you agree that there are different ways to cope with the mysteries of the world, including those darker times.
I do feel very sad about it sometimes, but I've got Dad.
Luna's more philosophical mindset allowed her to connect with people more profoundly. This honesty created a deeper bond with Harry. Well, most of the time.
How do I look?
Exceptionally ordinary.
Brilliant.
And this thread of individuality and creativity is present in other notable members of Ravenclaw too, like Professor Trelawney.
First, you must look beyond.
She had to live in the shadow of her great-great-grandmother, the renowned seer, Cassandra Trelawney. And while Sybil wasn't as naturally talented as her famous relative, she made up for it with her creative flair.
Together we shall cast ourselves into the future.
A deviceful mind helped Sybil to cultivate an air of mystery in her teachings. Even if she was, shall we say, clairvoyantly challenged, this technique won her some dedicated students, although not everybody was fooled.
What a load of rubbish.
Perhaps this is the type of Ravenclaw you are. You might not be hitting the library every night, but your mind is sharp and you're able to solve problems or shortcomings in ingenious ways. It must be fun to have a brain as unique as yours.
You have the grim
Then you have the Ravenclaws, who are innovators and inventors. For example, Gary Ollivander was often considered the best wand maker in the wizarding world.
Curious. Very curious.
Other historical Ravenclaws have shown expertise in this area too. Take Ignatia Wildsmith, for instance, the inventor of flue powder, also a Ravenclaw. Ignatia created this handy, magical form of transportation way back in the 13th century, and it continues to be a useful tool to this day.
What did he say, dear?
Diagonally.
I thought he did.
As long as the user remembers to speak clearly, of course. Maybe this sounds like you. Are you the type of person constantly inventing? Perhaps doodling sketches of your grand ideas on the back of napkins, or exhausting every notepad in the house? Then you would find a home in Ravenclaw. If your intelligence presents itself in more of a traditional, book-smart way, you'll likely relate to the head of your house, Professor Flitwick.
Don't forget the nice wrist movement we've been practicing. The swish and flick.
If there's something about charms that he doesn't know, well, it's not worth knowing.
Wingardium Leviosa.
Fun fact, Professor Flitwick was also a difficult decision for the Sorting Hat in his youth. He might be the head of Ravenclaw, but he was very nearly a Gryffindor, for Filius was as courageous as he was creative. Still not connecting with any of these Ravenclaws so far? Not to worry, this house contains multitudes, and so do you. Just look at the sportsmanship of Cho Chang, a Quidditch player so talented she even gave Harry Potter a run for his money. By employing smart strategies on the Quidditch pitch, she was able to gain the upper hand, such as tailing fellow seeker Harry in one of their matches.
Harry accelerated, eyes fixed on the speck of gold ahead, but next second, Cho had appeared out of thin air, blocking him.
Harry, this is no time to be a gentleman!
Wood roared as Harry swerved to avoid a collision.
Knock her off her broom if you have to!
Harry turned and caught sight of Cho. She was grinning. The snitch had vanished again.
And if it wasn't for those pesky fake Dementors, she might have even beaten him. After all, intelligence comes in many forms. Perhaps that's something you recognise. Cho used her wits whilst up in the air. Maybe you're the type to think on your feet. And the answers to life aren't always to be found in a textbook. However, alongside the creators, inventors, eccentrics, and strategists, Ravenclaw does have a darker side, and this takes us back around to Rowena Ravenclaw and the ghost of Ravenclaw House, her daughter, Helena. While Rowena's diadem brought her much coveted wisdom, Helena grew envious of her mother's talents, stealing the precious tiara, then running away. In the end, this event would lead to Helena's tragic murder by a man who became another Hogwarts ghost, the Bloody Baron.
It's the Bloody Baron!
You can learn more of Rowena's tragic story in our House Founders history video. This story teaches us that having boundless wisdom isn't everything. In fact, you could say that having too much of anything can lead to unexpected consequences. With Helena's ghost roaming Hogwarts forevermore, future students can learn from her story. This is one of the many lessons that Ravenclaws can carry with them. While your intelligent reputation precedes you, just resting on your brain power can't solve everything. But as a Ravenclaw, you can use your mind in so many fabulous ways to help shape the world for the better. Share your wisdom, in whatever form it may take. From Flitwick to Luna, and even Gilderoy Lockhart, he did have an uncanny ability for memory charms.
Obliviate!
A lot of the wizarding world's most interesting thinkers are found in Ravenclaw. It is a haven for those who march to the beat of their own drum, those who see the world through a different lens. Make sure to take that energy and pass it on to others. After all, in the words of Professor Flitwick,
a little extra wisdom never goes amiss, Potter.